Hello. Just waiting for some people to come on before I get started. I thought I would do a live video today to give an update on what's happening in Ghana with respect to the situation with COVID-19 coronavirus in Ghana. So maybe the timing might be a little bit off. Some people who follow me are in different time zones, so maybe you're not awake or maybe you've gone to sleep, depending on what time it is where you are. Um, I'm currently in Ghana, and in Ghana right now it is GMT time zone. So it is about 11 a.m., just after 11 o'clock in the morning on Friday. And just want to do this, quick video to talk about what is happening in Ghana. So what kind of prompted me to want to do this video is I've had a lot of people sending me messages asking me about what it's like being in Ghana, being in an African country during this pandemic, which is scary all over the world. Just seeing what's happening. Some of the countries that are powerful and have access to so many things are struggling, and I mean, it's tough. And I think because there's decades of seeing Africa in a negative light, there is a lot of the medical, scientific community, media, more media, I would say, who are surprised that the number of cases in the continent of Africa are as low as they are compared to other places in the world. People are expecting that Africa is going to fail. People are expecting that it's going to be rampant, and there's a lot of scare happening through media. So, for instance, even recently, Melinda Gates made a statement saying she sees dead bodies all over Africa. Now, it was a headline in an article that I saw that was shared with me, and now when you read it, it basically talks about that she's looking at historically things that have happened because of the infrastructure of some of the healthcare systems in Ghana. Let me just turn this notification off because it keeps beeping in the middle of the video. Um, there. So because historically we always hear about things not going so well in African countries, and there have been, disease and outbreaks and different things. I think that there's a lot of people around the world that are expecting that it's going to be really bad because of the infrastructure in a lot of the countries as well, and because there are areas that are poverty stricken that do have communities that live in close quarters, which can be quite dangerous with respect to this virus possibly spreading. The good news is there are a lot of the governments are taking action and being proactive in doing what they need to do to help to slow down the spread of this virus. Now, I can't speak specifically to what a lot of the other countries are doing. I'm not going to misrepresent or misquote. I can talk specifically about what's happening in Ghana since I'm here, and I often watch the briefings that the Ministry of Information is giving, every few days to update people on what's been going on. So right now, let me just read this stat. I don't want to get it wrong. Right now, according to what's on the World Health Organization site, there's over 2.1 million cases confirmed of COVID-19 around the world, collectively. And of that, 550,000 people have recovered. I wish there were more stories talking about the recoveries, because those stories can give people a sense of hope that you can recover from it. In total, around the world, is 145,705 deaths, people who've lost their lives, unfortunately, to this serious illness. So, this illness is ravaging so many places. Let me go specifically to the continent of Africa. The country with the most cases is South Africa. Where did I put my glasses? There they are. The country with the most cases is South Africa. Let me just read what I have here. South Africa is over 2.6 thousand. Algeria has 2.3 thousand, so 2,300. Cameroon 855. Ivory Coast. Oh, this is why I don't like doing live streams here in Ghana because the internet is very unreliable. It just like paused for quite a while before it resumed. So I apologize for the break in the connection. I will continue. So I was talking about the cases of COVID-19 in African countries, and how the caseload is actually lower than people expect. And I was saying that I would speak specifically on Ghana because I know what's happening in Ghana specifically because this is where I am at the moment. 641 cases in Ghana. And I'll rewind a few weeks back as to how it's been handled in this country because I think sometimes people living abroad think that African countries and African leaders, governments don't have the capacity. Basically, the Ghana government early on had started checking people's temperatures when they get to the airport, to check if people have symptoms, have people fill out a questionnaire to find out about their history, their travel history. This was happening in February. They quickly, after noticing how quickly it was spreading in other countries, the president made the decision to ban travelers from countries that had more than cases of COVID-19. Personally, I think it should have been any cases, but he made the decision that it was any country with more than 200 cases of COVID-19, travelers were not allowed to enter Ghana. So that was one of the restrictions that were done early on. And but at that point, there had already been people who had arrived in the country who had confirmed COVID-19. I believe it was, there were two people initially. One was from Norway, one was from Turkey, I believe. And so when that happened, already you know that there can be a situation of community spread because they've already started interacting with people in the country before they tested positive. So when the government continued with not allowing people to come into the country unless they were citizens of Ghana, we started to see that there were small increments of cases, and eventually they closed the borders completely in March. I believe it was the 20th or 23rd. I can't remember the exact date, but it was going towards the third week of March when they completely closed the borders. No flights in, no flights out. Nobody could, drive in. Nobody could come by sea, and so it was completely banned. And then while people were already on the way, because the president made this announcement in one of his addresses to the nation, there were already flights on the way to Ghana with people on them coming into the country. And so at that point, the decision was made to find a way to stop any potential cases from coming in. So everybody who were on those flights, I think it was about 1,030 people, were greeted by the Ghanaian military with army buses, and they had to all get on these buses and they were taken to mandatory quarantine. Mandatory quarantine for everybody who arrived in that flight. There were people who were, brouhaha and complaining about it on social media, on Twitter and stuff, saying that they weren't too happy about having to be forced into quarantine. But in any case, it was very good that they did that because in that forced quarantine, they were all tested for COVID-19. And in all being tested, 79 people tested positive. 79 tested positive. Imagine that that didn't happen where they were forced into quarantine and all these people came into the country not knowing they have it, and then community spread. That's exactly how it was spreading around the world. People just arriving places, not knowing they have it, getting into the community, having contact with so many people, and the next thing you know, boom, it's like out of control. So those people who tested positive were all started on treatment programs, and then the people, they all remained in quarantine for the 14 days, and just a few days before quarantine was supposed to end, they did a second on the flight while they were traveling, and then wouldn't have exhibited the positive test results yet on that day, would show up later, and it did. 26 more people on the second test tested positive, and so they were also put into treatment. So it was a total of 105 people from that flight, those flights, of total of 1,031 people who were positive. And thank goodness for the president, doing that, because it meant keeping the caseload down, because those people were not in the community spreading it unknowingly. So since those other original cases had already come into the country before, there was already community spread happening. So they've done really, really great work with contact tracing. So everybody who has come into Ghana, even from, I believe, sometime in February, late February through March, contact with those people. And Ghana is now the number 2 country in the world with how aggressively they're testing per capita. So per capita population, per million people, the testing that Ghana is doing is aggressive. And we all know through what they've been saying in the media, what they've been saying on the news, what science and health experts have been saying is, the more you test, the more you get an idea of how far it's being spread in your country. So I'm really, really proud of Ghana for the way that they're aggressively testing and testing and testing, to be sure that they get to everybody who can possibly be spreading this and unknowingly. There was, even at the land border, Ghana's land border between Burkina Faso and Ghana, there was 10 people who illegally traveled through the border and were caught. And when they were caught, they were arrested and they were all tested. And all 10 of them tested positive. Thank goodness, that law enforcement was doing what they're doing, was able to get these people and get them into quarantine so they can treat them as well. Because that's the thing, getting it early, treating the people, making sure that they are on the road to recovery. Ghana has had a number of recoveries for the virus. Let me just check on my computer here, because I don't remember the exact number. If I can find it. I think it was over 80 people that have fully recovered in Ghana. Let me just check to see. Recoveries. I hope that wherever you are, you're safe, and keeping close to loved ones if you live with loved ones, as far as like staying within your home, washing your hands frequently, avoiding touching your face with dirty hands, and using hand sanitizer. Okay, so with Ghana, there's a total of 83. Yeah, I knew it was more than 80. 83 people have fully recovered. So the total caseload in Ghana is 641 people who tested positive for COVID-19. Of the 641, 83 have fully recovered. 176, put my glasses on and see, 175 are responding well to treatment at the moment. 2 are in serious condition, and 8 people have unfortunately passed away as a result of complications from the virus. So that's the current situation in Ghana right now, as of today, Friday, 17th of April. Excuse me. And of the people tested, 20, I am always not wanting to put my 29% have a history of travel, and then 71% are people who are just through community spread. So I know one of the big concerns in Ghana and other African countries is for people who live in some of the communities that are the lower income, poverty stricken communities where people live in situations where there's multiple people living in the same house, living in the same room. You can have like six people sleeping in the same room, and for some of these people, it's a situation where they would have been working all day and then they would only come home and sleep. But now they're at home all day, and so they're in close quarters with people, and not knowing what people's status is can be a scary thing if there is community spread in those places that are close quarters. But I know the government is doing their best to help relieve with food situations as well, because that's another concern. Because there's a lot of people, there's an informal sector of business in Ghana and other developing countries. This is not only exclusive to Africa, you know, countries like India, Pakistan, a lot of countries have these types of people who work daily to make their daily income. They're not working a job where they're getting a monthly salary or getting a weekly or bi-weekly salary. Rather, they're going out and making their money on a day-to-day basis. You know, that person who's on the roadside selling fresh baked bread is making their money on a daily basis. The amount of bread that he or she sells is the money they're making for the day. So now if they're not able to be selling because we're trying to do social distancing, we're trying to keep people at home to keep the virus from spreading, it becomes very difficult for them. So it's a really great thing that the government has put in place a plan to feed the people who would be gravely affected by the situation, because those are people who can't afford to go and be stocking up on food. The middle class and upper class, the wealthy, are the ones who are able to go to the stores and shop in advance and stockpile things in their homes. There's been a lot of fundraising to help support the community as well. I'll Once this live is finished, I'll put the links in the description. So if anybody wants to donate to some of those causes, you certainly can. I know the Diaspora Affairs Office is mobilized to raise money to help Ghana in the fight against COVID-19. The Ghana Embassy in the U.S. In Washington also is raising money to try to help support the cause. So it's really really important that we stay vigilant and find ways to resolve some of the challenges. So, as I was saying, with respect to the people who work daily, with food distribution, they have been having points where they have food to distribute. But unfortunately, one of the challenges is people start crowding, you know, the truck that has come for food, not thinking about the fact that there's possible community spread if just one person, you know, has the virus. So, you know, conversations are happening right now about the mandate about how food should be distributed. You know, they should possibly be going to people's homes to drop and deliver off foods to people, because it does become a dangerous situation if there's a lot of people crowding a truck to get the food that they're distributing that's supposed to help them through the time. We don't want to have a situation where distributing food ends up distributing the virus. You know what I mean? But overall, I would say that I'm really impressed with how Ghana has mobilized. And I'm also very impressed with the way that a lot of innovation has come from this. You know, there's been people who've created things like, you know, hand washing stations that could be, there's one called Solar Wash that is powered by solar technology and pumps water from the ground and has, you know, soap that pumps out and helps people with washing their hands when they're, you know, at the market or different places throughout the city. You know, there's a person who created something with hand sanitizer as well. There's ventilators. They're using 3D printing to create ventilators. They're starting to manufacture PPE equipment for the healthcare workers that are desperately in need. Like, these are all things that are amazing to see how the country is mobilizing. And I think that what COVID-19 has done is it has forced governments to recognize that you can do it yourself, to recognize that there are ways to mobilize within your country and to not always rely on people outside of the country for certain things. Like, why hasn't Ghana been manufacturing PPEs for a long time? You know, most countries have been relying on China to create, you know, the personal protective equipment for healthcare workers, the masks, you know, the gear, the gloves, you know, the protection. Everybody's been relying on China. But now with what's going on and borders closed and limited ways to get things, and you know, China themselves struggling, you know, had struggled through this same thing. I mean, it started there, so obviously they struggled through it. But the whole world needs this stuff now. And so now people are learning to manufacture their own. I've been seeing, you know, videos, you know, in the US and other places where people are starting to manufacture more of this on their own rather than trying to get it from China, which is what a lot of people have done. I think one of the positive things too is that a lot of countries are going to realize that you can make stuff and manufacture in your own country. You know, over the years, the shift has gone to China. You know, I remember my father worked in the auto industry, and you know, for a long time over the years, there was a shift of things going overseas. You know, whether it's China, Japan, you know, Taiwan, wherever it is, a lot of companies move manufacturing out of their countries to go elsewhere where it's cheaper. You know, in the fashion industry, the same thing. You know, a lot of clothes. I remember in Canada, in Toronto, and Montreal, there used to be a lot of little manufacturers making clothes, and then everything ends up getting shifted abroad because it's cheaper to make, you know, per piece in China or wherever. And so I think that there's going to be that shift, that a lot of countries are going to start recognizing the value of creating within your country. And even though it may cost you more, because I know that that was always the bottom line is, well, if I can make, you know, jeans, and it costs me, you know, $4 per piece to make it in Canada, and you go to China and make it for $2 per piece, right? So I think a lot of times that was always the bottom line, and that those decisions being made. But now I think people are going to recognize, you know what, it's worth paying our people. Hi, how are you? I have to read this name now. Mario, thank you for watching. Um, yeah, I think people are going to realize that it's worth it to pay your people in your country a little bit more money and manufacture it within your country. And I think that a lot of people are now realizing it, I should say. They're now realizing it. So yeah, so in Ghana, it is definitely a situation of constant education, because the other thing is, a lot of countries, you know, the communication is being done, you know, in the national language. There might be one or two national languages. In Ghana, because Ghana used to be a British colony, the official language of the country is English. And the official country of English, oh, someone says, I'm here listening and cleaning, sis. Hi. Um, and so Ghana, with the official language being English, most of the communication had initially been done in English. But what was recognized early on is that, yeah, the official language is English, but a lot of people want communication in their local languages, especially in the hard to reach communities. So in the rural areas, not in like being in Accra or in Cape Coast or Kumasi, and you know, the bigger cities where you have a large number of people who are speaking English regularly. You have people in the smaller communities that would rather speak in their local language, and that's perfectly fine. So what I found was that there are people who are creating messages in local languages, you know, in Twi, in Ga, in Ewe, Hausa, Dagbani, like there's so many different languages that now even the Ministry of Information, when they do the press conferences, they said that they would translate everything into the different local languages for replay for people to see in other communities later on after the press briefing. And also during the press briefing, you often have somebody who will come on the podium and speak English, and then they'll translate it into Twi. one of the local languages or into Ewe or Ga. So that's great to see. It does make the press conference longer, but it's fine because it gives people an opportunity to be able to hear it in their own language. Um, Thank you for watching, everyone. Mario, Dawn, thank you. Yes, I'm doing. Oh, you lost a friend, Dawn. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Um, you said you lost one and one recovered naturally. Oh, that's great. I'm glad that you had one that recovered. I also know somebody who passed away. My old pastor when I lived in Canada, in Windsor, Canada. He passed away recently, sadly, and I have friends who passed away. I know some people in New York City who have been going through a lot as well. And praying every day for my friend who works for the NYPD. She's out there in the front lines and dealing with this every day, and praying for her safety and protection as she is there for the people of New York City. Another friend of mine in New York told me that he has it. He knows he has it because he was around people who had it. But unfortunately, he said he couldn't get tested, which is a crazy thing. A lot of people are in countries where they can't get tested. Um, oh, somebody said they used to live in Mississauga. Grow it. Oh, Mississauga. I used to live in Mississauga too, quite a while ago. Yeah. Love Mississauga. Great city. Great city. Mississauga, Ontario, Canada. For those of you watching, that city is right beside Toronto. People will say it's Toronto, but it's not. Mississauga is its own separate city beside Toronto. Um, so holla at me, Mississauga peeps. As I was saying, it's crazy that people can't get tested because this is a very serious thing because the testing and knowing who has it is what helps you to keep it from spreading. But anyway, the point of my video today was to discuss how things are in Ghana, what's happening, and basically to start to wrap it up. 641 cases confirmed in Ghana. Of the 641 cases, as of today, 83 people have fully recovered, and 2 people are seriously ill. 8 people have passed away. And It is really, really important that they continue with the testing that they've been doing. Mass testing. Ghana is doing mass testing. Like, I'm so impressed at how they're aggressively finding people and testing people, and that people are willing to be tested, which is great. So I am hoping they continue on this path, hoping we continue with what's being done. They said the borders are closed indefinitely right now. The travel industry is completely shot. As some of you know, I work with, the Year of Return, Beyond the Return, Ghana Tourism, all about tourism and promoting tourism to Ghana. And that's not the case now. Now we're in lockdown. We are staying in our homes. We are trying to stay safe and trying to stay healthy. And My biggest hope is that we're able to keep this from really spreading, and that somebody from Australia. I got to keep putting my glasses on. Watching from Australia. Thanks for watching. Um, my biggest hope is that this really ends. Like, this has got to end. This has really got to end. It's like we're living in a movie. When this is done, I'm sure there will be many manuscripts, books, screenplays about this experience. This is unreal. Like, Netflix. You're watching a movie that's on the big screen with Will Smith. I Am Legend. It's I am I'm constantly in complete shock that we're going through this. The reality has set in since I've been here a month. I've been in my house a month. I did step out a couple times because I had to buy groceries. I realized that I didn't have enough of what I needed. And my next door neighbors are it's quite loud because they have a lot of kids in the house. So yeah, so I'm hearing that every day. But I'm managing day by day. So thank you all for watching. I appreciate it. And I will update you again as things continue here in Ghana. As I said, I'm very impressed with how the country is handling it. I I was very surprised because there's things that Ghana is doing that other countries that are so-called first world countries are not and we're not doing. So I'm very impressed with what you're doing, Ghana. Keep it up, keep it up. So I do know there's challenges, as I mentioned earlier, but overall, I think that the government is doing a great job. Oh, I have to add something before I go. For some of you who may not know, because there's a big appreciation for healthcare workers now. They're in the front lines. They're putting their lives at risk with respect to what's going on every day, especially when they're in situations where they may be somewhere where they don't even have the personal protective equipment, but yet they're expected to do their job. The government of Ghana has offered a additional 50% of their salaries that they'll be paid while they fight COVID-19. They've been given free buses that will take them to and from the clinics and hospitals that they're working at. And they don't have to pay taxes during the next 3 months as they battle COVID-19. I was so impressed that the government decided to do that for healthcare workers who are in the front lines of this. They deserve it. They deserve more. They deserve it. So kudos to Ghana for giving healthcare workers, you know, something else to support them while they go through what they're going through. So thank you so much for watching today. My update from Ghana. I will continue sharing some of my old videos now that I have time to post stuff. I've been wanting to post more, but I have a lot of internet challenges happening. As you saw earlier in the video, the connection kept stopping. I will like upload a video and it'll take so long. One of the videos, I don't know if you've watched it yet, but it's from the Chalewote Festival. It's a almost 30-minute video where I go through all of the fun that I had there, talking to some of the people. That video took 2 days to finally upload. 2 days because the internet was just not agreeing. It would start uploading, then it would get to 44%, then it would just stop. Then it would try to upload again, and then it would stop. It took me 2 days, 2 days, 2 days. So the internet connectivity, where my house is not the greatest. So I have challenges. Because before, when I'd have challenges, I would just wait till I got to my office and do stuff because, that area, the connection was better. But I don't have that option now because I'm home. We're home. So anyway, I'll do my best to upload some more videos as the internet permits. So thank you again for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and give me some comments. I always do my best to respond to the comments. So thanks for watching.